All right, let's go to a question in the audience.
So just going back to the hack for a minute.
Yeah.
You're sitting down with your wife or a coworker, and you quickly realize, hey, this is a practical discussion for me, but they're highly emotional. Is it, in my mind, there's a few choices here. Either you jump down to the highly emotional state they're in, which might not be the right answer for the conversation. You drag them kicking and screaming up to your practicality, or do you kind of default back to the social? And if that's the answer, that might not be conducive to the conversation or even make sense. So, do you bring someone kicking and screaming up? Do you dive down? Do you try to find neutral ground and start over? Or what does that look like?
It's a great question. It's a fantastic question. And the thing to realize about matching each other, and this is actually known in psychology as the matching principle, that we have to be having the same kind of conversation at the same moment to communicate. If someone's really emotional, matching them does not mean that I have to become emotional myself. But it does mean that I need to acknowledge that they're feeling something, right? So sometimes it's as simple as saying, it seems like this is really upsetting you, and I want to talk about solutions. I want to talk about some practical solutions. But before we do, just tell me why this is bugging you so much, because it seems like this is a big deal for you. When I do that, I'm inviting them to tell me about their emotions. We're having an emotional conversation. Now, I don't have to say like, oh, I feel the same way, or I don't have to say, here's the turmoil I've experienced in my life. It's just acknowledging that they are feeling something that has that conversation. Now, I'll give you another example where it's a little bit easier, is that you're sitting down in a conference room, you're waiting for a meeting to start, you turn to the guy next to you and you say, oh, how was your weekend? And they say, oh man, it was great. I went to my kid's graduation. It was a great weekend. Now, the easiest thing to do is to say, oh, congratulations. That's so good to hear. Here's the agenda. Let's go ahead and start going through the agenda. But if you just take a second and you think, oh, this guy just told me how he was feeling. And you turn to him and you say, oh, what did that feel like to watch your kid walking across that stage? Like, now you are matching him on the emotional conversation. And he's going to tell you for 30 or 45 seconds. And then you can say, oh, that sounds amazing. Thank you for sharing that with me. We should probably get down to this agenda. And now you guys are in sync. Now you're moving together. So for that conversation with that employee who's really worked up, simply saying, tell me what you're feeling. I want to acknowledge, here's what I'm hearing you say. Can we start talking about solutions now? Because I think I know I might. Can we move from an emotional to a practical conversation? Do I have your permission? What you're going to find is that you guys are moving together.
Makes sense.
And honestly, this matching, this taking the time to figure out what's going on, it usually only takes about 30 seconds.
Right.
It's really fast, and it makes that next 3 or 4 minute conversation so much more impactful. Because if you do have them stacked and everyone walks away from that meeting saying, he didn't listen to me, I don't understand what he said, you really just wasted all that time.
But it's surprising how much is missed.
Yeah.
Two observations, because this is a great leadership question.
Yeah.
And this is probably one of the most difficult thing about leading people.
Yes.
Is you gotta be a people person, a people officer. Right. So I think there's 2 things that are interesting around this question. One, we've got to remember as leaders, and the data shows us this, that people are still little boys and little girls. And they are looking at their leader in some way as a parent.
Yeah.
Do you see me? Do you hear me? You know what I mean? And they're bringing that to us. And many times, I love the way you answer that, because I think that is a simple way to meet that primal need. Do you see me? Do you value me? Am I a unit of production, or do you see me as a person?
Right.
I think that's one. The second observation is, and I love the way he set that up, because as a leader, you're sitting there and you can see they're emotional. Okay. Well, he or she as a leader may also have something going on in their personal life, or some emotion going on in them in the workplace too. So they've got emotional junk and turmoil and trash.
Yeah.
My therapist calls it, we're all walking around with our own garbage.
Right.
And so you got that going on, and that affects your ability sometimes. As leaders, I could see how it would be very impairing. I don't know if I've got the emotional bandwidth to meet them there. What are your thoughts on that?
So it's a really good question. When someone comes to us and they're bringing up some emotions, they want to have an emotional conversation, What they're looking for is they're looking for us to acknowledge their emotions. And sometimes the way we do that is we say, I know what you're feeling because I felt it myself. Like, I understand you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. When I was in your role, I felt stressed and overwhelmed, and I still kind of do, right? I understand what you're going through. I hear what you're saying. But on the other hand, there's these times when someone comes up and they say, I'm really stressed about the budgets. And you say, or their boss says, oh, I totally understand. I have a dog who's sick right now. It's totally stressing me out, right? In a situation like that, I'm not actually acknowledging that I hear what you're saying. I'm trying to steal the spotlight from you onto me. So how do I show you that I'm listening? How do I prove to you that I'm paying attention? Sometimes it's just asking a question. I'm sorry you're stressed out. Tell me more about that. Like, what does it feel like?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's sharing something about yourself. If it is something that complements what the person is saying, instead of trying to take the spotlight from them.
Yeah.
But in general, if your motive is to show this person that you are listening, you're going to do the right thing.